Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am Tyler Dozot and this is Football for Thought episode 7. There was big things happening in football this week with the XFL being in week 10, a lot of playoff implications on the line, as well as USFL having its second week, and of course Aaron Rodgers being traded to the Jets. So we're going to jump straight into that. Like last episode and the ones before, I will have the teams above if you guys just want to search and find your team, or if you guys want to watch it all through. Either way, hope you guys enjoy the video. And later on in the video, I do have a special guest coming to talk about their favorite team. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. And like I mentioned, playoff implications on the line. Very, very important week. And we started off automatically with week 10, first matchup being the Orlando Guardians versus the St. Louis Battlehawks. St. Louis and Seattle are tied. They need to win this game. Both of them, really. But right now, I'm talking about St. Louis needing to win this game. Orlando's been knocked out. They have nothing to play for except to knock St. Louis out of the playoffs. And it was a great game. It was a really, really good game, at least going into the half. And we start the game off with the Guardians striking first to wide open Jamil sitting in the right corner of the end zone, just snagging that ball in, putting the first points up on the board. But then, of course, Seattle goes and strikes back. A.J. McCarron doing his thing once again. And then after that, they go ahead and score a field goal, okay? But that doesn't stop them. The Guardians down by 3 with 9 minutes left in the second. Okay, plenty of game left, but they said screw it. 4th and 24, we are throwing a bomb with our punter once again. Okay, Mac Brown hits an 84-yard touchdown to big boy Jordan Thomas to now put them back on the board. And that's not where the action stops because there's 2 more touchdowns within 30 seconds of one another. It goes Orlando, then it goes St. Louis. And then St. Louis scores once more right before the half, making the score 25-20. And the first half of this game has been amazing. Yes, St. Louis is leading 25-20, but the Guardians are looking like they're about to take this team down. Now, like I said, Guardians have nothing to fear. St. Louis has backs against the wall, and they are scared right now. With the playoff implications, though, Seattle has more offensive points. Seattle has let up least amount of points. So really, right now, St. Louis is doing good being up by 25. They need to get their score higher, but also they kind of screwed up. Already, the Guardians has gotten 20 points, and St. Louis does not need them to score again. If they score once more, St. Louis is out of the playoffs automatically if Seattle wins. So going into this locker room at half, they are having to give the speech of a lifetime to where St. Louis can pull this game away. And what a speech it probably was, because St. Louis comes out swinging and just not letting their foot off the gas, okay? They go ahead and not let Orlando score a single touchdown until 5 minutes left in the game. St. Louis is putting up score after score after score, and it meant nothing. St. Louis puts up 58 points in the final score, but they let Orlando score with 5 minutes left, making it 58-28. And now St. Louis did all of that. A.J. McCarron threw 6 touchdowns for really nothing if Seattle wins. But it was still a great game to watch, at least in the first half. It got boring when St. Louis was just putting up points, but they needed to do it. But speaking of playoff implications, people needed to win. We go over to the next game. We now move on to the DC Defenders versus the San Antonio Brahmas, and this scenario is a little different. DC has already clinched it. They know they are playing at home, but San Antonio Brahmas, they have a chance. They just need to win this game and Arlington to lose, and they're in. And it was a great game. Just let's get into it. Wasting no time, Ta'amu comes out for DC and scores a touchdown 3 minutes in the game. But, San Antonio does answer back, getting a field goal on their opening drive. We continue further in the game, and DC scores on every single possession until San Antonio gets a pick, turning it into a touchdown right before the half, making the score 19-11. DC still up, but San Antonio finally getting a heartbeat, answering back after being down 19-3 for most of this half. Now, it gets a little quiet going into the second half to start off with. Both of the teams do kick field goals, opening up on their first drives of the game. But with 6 seconds left in the third quarter, San Antonio finally gets another heartbeat and makes it a 2-point game with another touchdown, making the score 20-22. And going into the fourth, this is just a nail-biter on what's going to happen here. Now, due to a very costly interception, a very interesting interception, should I say, San Antonio goes and gets a touchdown off that, finally getting their first lead of the game, making the score 20-28 with not long left on the clock. But no worries for DC. Tamu does his magic that he does, and he scores and takes the lead right back with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock. Still plenty of time for the Brahmas to go and hopefully clinch their playoff spot. And an opportunity is what they had. They go down the field, and with very few time left on the clock, they put faith in Parker Romo, their kicker that's only missed one kick the entire season. And in warm-ups was kicking 61-yard field goals and making them. They put it all on his leg. All of the tension for a 53-yard kick to win the game, to beat the top team in the XFL, to hopefully clinch their playoff spot, and he misses it. Parker Romo misses it. DC wins 29-28. It was a nail-biter this entire game. It was a great game. But Arlington now has clinched the playoff spot. It is now going to be Houston and Arlington in the South playoffs. But speaking of Houston and Arlington, that's the game we have up next. Now we go to the third game of Week 10, Houston Roughnecks versus the Arlington Renegades. And now, as we know before the game starts, this is going to be the first playoff game that's automatically set. We now have the Houston Roughnecks playing the Arlington Renegades in the South Division Championship. So let's see how this game goes. Houston's had a bit of a rough patch recently. They started off 4-0 and started to fall down a little bit. So Wade Phillips said, let's change up the quarterback, change it up a little bit, and now Cole McDonald is in the start. And start is what he does. He opens the game up with a rushing touchdown himself, and the Renegades answered back, kicking 3, not getting the touchdown on their own, but they're still putting some points on the board. Now, just like Cole McDonald getting his time to shine, we also have running back Jeremy Cox getting his time to shine, and he does that. He goes and gets himself a rushing touchdown, but also just putting tons of yards on the ground himself. After he gets his rushing touchdown, the Renegades go and kick three more points, and then 3 more points, letting the score be 12-9 at half. And really, it's anyone's game. It's very sloppy. It's very boring right now. Someone needs to pick it up. And I mean, if Houston doesn't keep it up, they are losing this game. So Bob Stoops told him that. He said, hey, we need to come out of this locker room firing on all cylinders. We need to beat this team and show them we will do it next week in the playoffs. Well, Lou Perez throws a pick 6 to Bennett, and it just didn't turn from there. So after this pick 6, Houston is up, and Renegades have no fire at all. They have nothing to work with here. Houston just kicks another 3 and ends the game. Final score, actually, being 25-9. Arlington not getting a single touchdown. Louis Perez just doesn't do his best. But also, Houston played very sloppy. So with this being said, I'm not sure what's going to happen next week in the playoffs, but Houston got the win nonetheless. And now we move over to the Seattle Sea Dragons versus the Vegas Vipers with the special guest star I mentioned already. All right, and speaking of that special guest star, here he is right now. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Howdy, guys. I'm Landon. Pretty casual football fan, but I started watching the XFL this year. Big Sea Dragons fan, so yeah, very happy right now.
Yeah, man. And speaking of Sea Dragons, let's dive straight into that breakdown. So, Seattle versus the Vegas Vipers. This was a huge game. Seattle needed to win this game and not let Vegas score at least 30, 34 points.
Yes.
And they pulled that off. It was very weird in the beginning, though. It was a scoreless game until late in the first half, and Ben DiNucci just goes and gets a 14-yard rush, getting those 6 points on the board, and they just ignited from there.
Yeah, Ben DiNucci has been a great player this year. Probably my favorite player to watch in all the XFL. Super exciting. Very risky sometimes with the 2 interceptions he had later on in this game. You'll understand why, but he makes things happen, and I like that about him for sure.
He has those dance moves, too.
Yeah, the moves are crazy.
So after the half, it's still just a chess match back and forth, but Vegas finally scores midway through the third quarter. But the Sea Dragons answered back. They answered back fast with a 37-yard touchdown from Ben DiNucci to Juwan Green, and they just did not look back from there.
At this point, I'm feeling super confident in our team. Vegas had only scored a field goal, and so I just felt really good, really good.
Yeah, it's looking like playoffs are going to be secured easily. And then Seattle just scores basically the opening drive of the fourth quarter. It goes ahead and scores, and just ever since that, the defense did their job. They held the Vegas Vipers only 1 touchdown the entire game, making the scores you can see behind us, 28-9, and the Sea Dragons securing their spot in the playoffs. How are you feeling about that?
I'm feeling great, man. Honestly, I'm very confident. I know we've split games with the Defenders, right? Or did we lose?
No, we lost both of them.
Both of them. Okay, that's really scary. But honestly, I don't know. I feel like we can get it done. We've scored a ton this year, and I feel like as long as we can just keep our offense rolling and our defense is as good as they have been the past few weeks, it should be a different scenario this time around.
The team's very hot too.
Yeah.
The whole team. So DC's won both those times, but a combined score of 5 points. So I agree. I think it's really Sea Dragons' time to shine, take down the number one team. But you say you're a huge Sea Dragons fan. What made you get into it? Because I remember speaking to you about a few weeks leading up to the XFL. Hey, here's the XFL. Here are the teams. You interested? And you said,
Yeah. I looked at the team sheets and I was like, all right, nobody from Louisiana. So who's got the coolest logo? And I picked the Sea Dragons. I love dragons, very cool animal,
yeah,
mythical. But yeah, and that's why I picked them, and I am very happy I did. Very
yeah,
happy I did.
they are definitely paying off for that. I had the Roughnecks just because of 2020 season, but they're kind of falling off. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But what do you think? Give me the playoff. Who do you think is going to win and final score of the DC versus Sea Dragons?
DC versus Sea
Be honest.
Dragons.
Don't be biased.
I'm gonna go Sea Dragons,
Okay.
35-28. It'll be close. It'll be a
It'll be
close
close, but
game.
a high
Yeah,
scoring one.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely, definitely. With both of these offenses, it'll be a high scoring game. They have Tuamu on the defenders, and that guy's been cutting up.
Yeah, they have him
The
and DR
quarterback.
King. It's like a double hit combo.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about with the other playoff game? We have the Roughnecks versus the Renegades.
I mean, we just saw that game last week.
We did.
The Roughnecks are going to dominate. I think that they just, as far as the South goes, they're by far the best team in my opinion. But when it comes to the championship game, I still think Seattle's got it. You know what I'm saying? I feel very confident.
See, with me on that, it's weird because it's hard to beat a team twice, much less the week after.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Roughnecks just beat the Renegades, but now you're having to play them once again the week after. They know each other very well. So I don't know. To me, it's going either way. I'm gonna go Roughnecks though,
Yeah.
but I guess yeah, I must say Sea Dragons and Roughnecks are really the dream matchup in the finals
For us, at least.
for us.
I
Yeah,
know
I
that's
agree
what
with
we want
that.
to see.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you being on a little small segment, but I like that you got to go on here and talk about your Sea
Yeah, of
Dragons.
course, man. I just wanted to hype up the boys. Let's go Pearson. Let's go Gordon, and let's go Danucci. We're gonna win it all, baby.
All right, and thank you so much, Landon, for coming on the show and talking about your Sea Dragons. Man, he's talking my ear off about them all the time, so I'm glad he got to come on here and share it with you guys. But right now, we're moving on from the XFL. We have the USFL. It's a mouthful, but it's the United States Football League. So we're going to talk about the viewership. So if you guys don't remember, last week, the USFL trumped the XFL as far as views, but I don't know what happened. Maybe it was the XFL having so much playoff implication on the line in week 10, or the first week of the USFL was kind of boring because it was their first time playing in the wild. But the views go as follows, with actually the XFL on the top this time with 2.25 million views, and the USFL with only 1.87 million views. And that's a drop from last week when they had 3.15 million. So, I mean, y'all do the math, but something happened where it just fell off completely. I think it's because this week one, or that week one, was very boring. Like I said, you haven't played football in a while. The week one is going to be boring. And also, week 10 of the XFL was huge, very hyped up. So I do think they'll pick up a little later on, especially with the XFL, ending very soon. But we get into week one of the XFL and their scores. So I did get in a little trouble with YouTube for showing the highlights. So I'm just going to let you guys know the scores. Me and you. We started off with the first game of the week. We have the Houston Gamblers versus the New Orleans Breakers. New Orleans Breakers being my team, home team, cheering for them. They are now 2-0, beating the Houston Gamblers in a very close game, 38-31. We then go on to the Memphis Showboats, again making their return to the USFL versus the Birmingham Stallions, the reigning champions. And they've shown once again in week 2, they are champions for a reason, whooping the Showboats 42-2. And I'm very intrigued because if they can keep this up, I don't see anyone challenging them. And also, I noticed from this last game with the Stallions, I'm glad they blew out the Showboats because my boy Thaddeus Moss is over there, Randy Moss's son. He actually plays for the Birmingham Stallion team. So that's a notable player I forgot to mention in the past video. On the Sunday slate of games, we had the New Jersey Generals versus the Pittsburgh Maulers, which was again another blowout. The Generals beating the Maulers 20-3 in that game. In the last game of the week 2 weekend, we have the Michigan Panthers versus the Philadelphia Stars, both 1-0, looking to see what they can do versus each other. And the Panthers go ahead and win the game 24-10. And I'm seeing a lot about this, but their Panthers running back goes on the phone on the sideline at half and tells them, hey, I need to run this ball. I can win this game. And they did exactly that. They give him that ball, and he carried it, shoved it down their throats, and won the game for the Michigan Panthers. So, with the XFL only having 2 games being shown, of course, both the playoff games, I'm going to be watching a lot more USFL, and it seems like I'm going to be enjoying it because in this last week, they knocked the rust off a little bit more. So, the 2 games I'm excited to watch, and I hope you guys are too, so I want to go ahead and let y'all know, are the New Orleans Breakers versus the Birmingham Stallions. Now, this game will be played in Birmingham because that's where the Breakers play. But both these teams are 2-0. Of course, the Stallions have been blowing everybody out, but the Breakers are good as well. The defense didn't really hold much last game, but the game before they did well. So I'm excited to see which happens here, and really, to me, this is going to show who's going to be the winner of that division. But the other game I'm excited for is the Generals versus the Panthers, New Jersey versus Michigan. Michigan Panthers are the only other team besides the Breakers and Stallions that are 2-0. So I want to know if they can push to 3-0 in the North. They are playing the New Jersey Generals, who haven't been the best of teams, but I feel like they can definitely compete being 1-1. So those are the 2 games I'm excited for in Week 3, and I'm definitely thinking the Michigan's going to pull it out, and then probably Birmingham with that one. But that does it here for the USFL. Like I said, I'm not going to show highlights or do anything too in-depth right now while the XFL is going on, and a very big part of the XFL. I'm going to stay focused on that, but this is Football for Thought, so we're speaking about some football. Now, don't go clicking off thinking that was it, because we have a little bit more, okay? We have the Aaron Rodgers being traded to the Jets. It took about 4 or 5 years, but he's finally traded over there, and that made me super excited. Aaron Rodgers is definitely a Hall of Famer. He is one of the best to ever do it. The way he can throw the football, his IQ, everything. And he's now going to a team that has plenty of weapons for him, a great defense, and I am just very excited to see what happens over at the New York Jets. And, last but not least, I have to touch on it, man. I have to do it. I predicted in the XFL the finals would be the St. Louis Battlehawks because of their crazy fan base, because of how amazing they were last year, and the Houston Roughnecks because of their 5-0 record last year, or not last year, but last XFL generation, and because they seem like they were dominating the South, but that's not going to happen. Maybe for the Roughnecks, they could definitely be in the championship, but Seattle Sea Dragons kind of took the spot from the Battlehawks. So with that being said, I am going Seattle Sea Dragons versus the Houston Roughnecks to finish out the XFL season, but we will see. It's going to be a great game, and I am very excited for it, and I know my boy Landon is as well. So with that being said, guys, that is Football for Thought. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of Week 10, who you guys think will win these playoff games coming up, and also if you guys are going to watch the USFL, if you guys tuned out like most of America, or most of the world for that USFL Week 2, and until next time, I'll catch y'all in the end zone.